I used to think success meant income, stability, productivity, and always moving forward. But the older I get, the more I realize it's a lot more complicated than that. And when we adopt that definition of success, what do? Well, we work really hard. We're trying to achieve goals. We're trying to make as much money as possible at that stage of our career, our education, you name it. But there's this drive to move forward, and it's all encompassing. If that's our definition, then we're going to be focused on taking steps to meet that, as was I. I think I've talked about it before, playing the role of the professional, the look, the attitude, the styling, everything about it. I went from intern to licensed therapist to program manager to director, ultimately to private practice. And so I was always moving forward. What was the next step? What was the next level I could achieve? And when we have that definition, those are some of the paths that we invariably take. And then there's the career identity that comes with all that too. I am a insert, right? Fill in the blank. I am a therapist. I am an attorney. I'm an architect. I am whatever you are. And see, that is one of the huge pitfalls right there that I fell into, that I talked about in the video about my hair and my looks and all that, was I became what I did as opposed to it being simply what I do. And that is a huge pitfall, that we start defining ourselves by what we do. And we set goals based on that. And we live oftentimes based on that. How does an accountant live? How does a lawyer live? How does a therapist live? How does a plumber live? How does an electrician live? And we adopt the mannerisms, the habits, and the styles. And in doing so, see, here's the pitfall. There's nothing really wrong with doing that. But in doing so, we lose ourselves. We lose pieces of us as we're playing that role. And on many levels, we think we're being practical. We think we're doing what makes sense. And to some degree, it does. We live in a culture and in a society where we have roles. We put on a face, a persona every day. And at some point when we put it on enough, it starts to define who we are. And then who we really are starts to take a back seat. And that's where the problem arises, where there's a lack of congruency, a lack of alignment between who we really are and feel on the inside and who we're being, so that we can reach the goals of success as potentially we've defined it. If we're a creative person and our profession doesn't necessarily generate creative pursuits and outcomes, we may start to lose that creative parts of ourselves. And in sort of suppressing who we really are, exhaustion can set in. It's tiring. It's tiring being somebody for others, playing the part, playing the role, even if you start to really adopt it as yourself. By denying who you really are, that does suck up emotional energy, and burnout potentially comes from that too. And so we have to be very, very careful and find a balance, because those are, just a few of the outcomes. I'm going to talk about a few more here in a second as well, but those seem to be the two that I really wanted to highlight early on here, is that we lose our creativity, maybe because I'm a bit of a creative person, photography, piano, that maybe that one resonates with me. I'd love to hear what potentially resonates with you. Think of it, the park, right? You're having a picnic and little bunny rabbits and squirrels are running around doing their thing. They're adorable little creatures. They're super sweet. But what are they doing? They're always vigilant. They're all vigilant. Nice one. They're always vigilant of their surroundings. They're paying attention. They're nervous. Probably a nice summary right there. They're nervous. They're worried about the outcome. If I walk over there to get that little nut, Am I risking my life? Is a bird going to swoop down and get me? Is a coyote going to come run up and get me? So they're always thinking ahead. They're always planning for a worst case scenario. Well, when we're in those high stress situations, achieving success, as is typically defined as we've been defining it today in this video, we start to become that as well. We're thinking ahead. We lose our curiosity. It seems like there's no time to just explore random thoughts and ideas because we're tired. We've gotten up early, we've got our kids to school, we go to the job that we have to perform all day long. And these days it's a lot more than 8 hours from what I hear. Do more with less. And so there's less staff to do the same amount of work. And so people are putting in longer days to come home, to pick up kids from school, deal with that. All this just to get ahead, to feel successful. And of course, curiosity about the world kind of tends to fade. There's no time and effort to think about that. I remember a professor had a great line one time. I was in graduate school and we were being supervised. And one of the students brought up an issue that they saw with one of the families that they're seeing. And it was important, but it wasn't as important as their presenting issue. And this therapist really wanted to pursue it. And the supervisor, a famous marriage and family therapist at the time, one of the pioneers in the field, he looked at the student and said, "It's really hard to worry about your runny nose when your house is burning down." I was like, whoa, mind blown, how insanely accurate. Yes, your runny nose is a problem. Your house burning down is a bigger problem. And so it'd be nice to be curious about the world, sit and explore and let your mind wander and wonder what the meaning of this or that is. That's all well and good, but the immediate thing is I got kids that I got to support, a mortgage I've got to pay, a job I got to get to, a job I can't lose, a promotion I'm fighting to get. And that's the house burning down side of that example. Hard to worry about creativity and pursuits and leisure and enjoyment when you're living towards those goals and that level of success. And the last thing I really want to mention about that is how passions can go dormant. And then we wake up one day and realize, like I had, that I hadn't played the piano in over 20 years. And it was time maybe to go back and do it now that I had the opportunity. Success today for me is defined as peace. It's defined as contentment, of happiness, of enjoying pursuits that bring joy and value and contentment to life. Those are some of the ways that I define success today. Are finances not an issue? No, of course they really are. For any of us, we have to be able to pay our bills. We have to be able to sustain ourselves in our life. But we start to realize that there are other competing priorities as well, and we start to prioritize those in the mix as well. Sometimes to the point of where I'm at, living with less income, less toys, less things, maybe not as fancy of a car, in order to find that peace and still be able to manage the financial realities that we have to, and then use that time that you've saved yourself, you're making less, you're working less, and spend that time in a creative, fun, or other endeavor that produces contentment. And another benefit of slowing down is flexibility, having the time and the ability to roll with the punches that life might throw at you, positive or negative. So what's happened? So my wife works full-time, I'm working part-time now, very part-time, semi-retired as we keep saying. But guess what? When there's an errand that has to be run, I have the flexibility to do it. And so it doesn't just benefit me or the person who's slowing down and taking a different look at their definition of success. It also benefits those around them because that person can pick up other tasks and take them off the shoulders of others while still enjoying the benefits of their more leisurely paced life. One way we can look at this is, how do we define success? Is it internal or external? And I think I'm coming to the realization that I'm defining success more internally versus externally. With all that said, Let's all work towards creating meaning, happiness, contentment, joy, peace, and freedom in these years that we have to enjoy them as fully as possible.